The backstory to this is that in 2009, the Sisters of Mercy were one of 18 religious institutions found guilty in the Ryan Report of permitting and covering up rape, molestation, beatings and mental cruelty in their children's institutions over a very long period of time. They offered a paltry €128 million contribution out of a total of €1.25 billion paid out by the state to victims as children. And amongst them was the Magdalene laundry at the Good Shepherd's Sundays Well. Another was the Peacock Lane laundry and orphanage run by the Sisters of Charity at St. Vincent's. The Sisters of Charity, who ran Peacock Lane, offered $5 million. Between them, and along with the Besborough Mother and Baby Home, they caused horrific trauma to mothers and their babies. Mothers who suffered years of post-traumatic stress, shame, isolation, loneliness and neglect, and many spent a lifetime mourning their lost child. And the babies grew to be men and women, and some spent a lifetime trying to piece together their life, wondering why they'd been abandoned by their mothers and their fathers. In many cases, not realizing that their mother was spending every day of every year in search of their lost son or daughter. And in many cases, there were no fathers to call to account. Girls were victims of rape, incest, a boyfriend who did a runner at the news of a pregnant girlfriend, and a family who didn't want to deal with the shame or the embarrassment of a pregnant daughter in the family. In many documented cases in Ireland for many decades, tracing back to way before the foundation of the state, the cruelty man, as he was known, in collusion with the state, the courts, the Catholic Church and the police, took young babies, infants, toddlers and children from their mothers and fathers and placed them in industrial schools. In Cork, the likes of Upton, Clonakilty, Greenmount, Mallow. Industrial was the correct word to use, and these children were not educated, not properly fed, not properly clothed. They never celebrated a birthday and knew nothing of Christmas. And they lived a life of silent toil, told not to speak. Some as young as 4. They were placed in the institutions to do one thing, to work. And they were classed as nobodies. They were told their mothers were prostitutes. They were given a number, not a name. Children were raped in industrial schools, orphanages and Magdalene laundries in Ireland. Paedophiles were employed in residential schools. When officials and nuns were told of rape and paedophilia, some all too often chose not to listen. And the horrors of over 100 years would not come to an end in this country till 1996. In the laundry at the Good Shepherd's for over 100 years, young girls, many having actually never had a child at all, some were labelled spirited, difficult to handle, wild, spent years washing and years ironing bloody sheets from hospitals, nuns' sanitary towels, hotels' linen, many more stitched sepulchres and robes for priests and nuns and altar boys. They stitched fancy linen for posh Irish and UK stores without pay, more importantly, while imprisoned, with no family, no friends, and the nun's iron fist of no talking, ever. You talk, you get beaten. Nuns who were held up in society as the brides of Christ, the purest of the pure, the kindest of the kind. As a young boy, I remember all too well calling to the Good Shepherd's on Sundays Well with my mother to pick up my own first set of altar clothes, big oak front doors. And the young girls sent to fetch and deliver them in a brown parcel wrapped in twine. And I have over the years broadcast life stories, many of them of individual men and women who went through these hells as boys and girls and never recovered as adults. But this morning it's 3 stories of the one family, a mother, a daughter, a son and brother. 3 lives destroyed by the collusion of Irish institutions of church and state, who were eventually brought kicking and screaming to account. And this is the story of Mary Smith from Newmarket, County Cork, her mother Eileen Smith and her brother Christy Smith. It's a story told by Mary about her mother Eileen, buried in a unmarked grave in Curracapon at the age of 42. Her brother Christy, born in Besborough, also buried in Curracapon, though not in a grave with his mother, after being in Cork institutions for a total of 57 years of his life. And it's the story of Mary Smith herself, taken from her mother at birth, bounced from industrial schools, orphanages, a slave in a posh Cork house where she slept in the broom cupboard and washed in the yard. and Magdalene laundries. It's a stolen life. It's 3 stolen lives. 3 of many tens of thousands. But this is a true story for you, told by Mary Smith. Not a name back then, but a Magdalene number. Number 1346. We're going back to the 1950s when you were born, wasn't that it?
It's all coincidental how things happened. My mother got pregnant on me in 52. Originally, I came from Kerry Road in Mark, County Cork.
Yeah.
And the horrific thing about the whole situation was the priest gave orders for my mother to put into Peacock Lane when she was 4 months pregnant on me.
The laundry.
But I didn't know, but prior to that, she had another son. I wasn't aware I had a brother. Years later, I discovered that my mother was taken off me and she gave birth to me in St. Patrick's Hospital in Fermoy, County Cork.
Yeah.
And after that, there's no record of me whatsoever. Even my solicitor said to me, "Where were you for the first couple of years of your life? Are you sure you have the right age?" There's no record of me until the cruelty man came and took me and brought me into the industrial school in Clonakilty. Then I was put straight to work. I don't know what age I was because I never had a birthday in Clonakilty. We never went to school. And that's even on my chart.
Talk to us a little bit about how your day would go each and every day. How would it be spent?
Oh, I remember first thing in the morning, the dormitory, the bell would ring in the dormitory. We'd all have to get out and kneel down in the cold, cold dormitory. The nun would come around and lash across the face if you didn't join your hands and say your prayers. And you went straight over then to cross the yard over to Mass. And my Mass was over, you know, if there was food left over after the boarders or the nuns, we'd get it.
Yeah.
And then, say for example, there was a laundry there. Now I was so small, and I say small, and they had to lift me onto pallets to get to the sinks. And there was these scrubbing boards and washboard, but you know, the non-sanitary towels. And then there was in big use that's called dormitories, and you had to get down and wax the floors on your knees and line this on the dormitory, and it has to be shiny. And if it wasn't, the nun would come along with a leather strap and she'd whip you. Then you had to go over then on a Saturday and clean the whole church, the chapel, and then they pull out the seats on both sides. There was 3 of us, we were only small children, on both sides. Wash the floors on our knees, then wax the seats on the church, and do the convent as well. We had to go down the long corridors, big long corridors, on our knees, waxing floors all the time. And then the nuns used to have rooms over there. We used to have to go in and clean their rooms as well. So this was ongoing all the time.
Cleaning all the time, cleaning.
Yeah, you were coming down the corridor, the nun would say, "What's your name?" And you'd say, "Mary Smith." So you are a nobody, and you to remember that. This is now was in Clonakilty now.
Yeah.
And we weren't allowed to mix with the outside girls coming up from Clonakilty Convent.
So you would have been about 4 or 5 years old at this stage, I think, yeah?
Absolutely, yeah. That's all I remember. My first memory on this planet, believe it or not, it's no word of a lie, I was looking into some hole, whatever, I didn't know what it was, but my first life on this planet was fear. Because the fear was that I was going to fall into this big hole, and I even remembered years later, it was a nun's graveyard.
Yeah.
We would have to go to the nuns' funerals, and we used to have, anytime they died, we had to kiss them goodbye.
I was reading your files, and one question you would keep asking yourself as a child is, what have I done to deserve this?
Absolutely. And all I kept thinking, like, why am I have to work? And I used to be crying, and a lot of us be crying because we were treated so bad. And like you know, that, for example, if you were scrubbing down the stairs, and if you got sick, I remember getting sick one day on the stairs, and the nun asked who got sick. Even if you got sick, you were still beaten.
So any excuse to beat you. What would they beat you with? Sticks, leather, what?
Oh yeah, I'll give you an instance of what happened. I was waxing the dormitory floors for the boarders, and of course us as little children would want to know what it's like to go to school. Yeah. So anyway, Niall, I says to one of the girls who was sick and she was off school, what was it like to go to school? You could imagine a little girl asking a bigger girl, what's it like to go to school? And she's trying to explain to us that you study in school. And so I heard this rattling, a bead, and I hid under the bed because I was supposed to be working.
God. Did you get a beating for talking to the boarders?
A beating? Wait till I tell you what happened. Anyway, I don't even call them nuns, I call them freaks. She saw me talking, and that night she came into the dormitory and she asked myself, and she said, you know you're here to walk, not to talk to the outside world. So she had a strap in one hand and she had a stick in the other. I remember it to this day. And she said to me, she got me up my hand with the strap and the stick on both hands. Then she got me across the bed. She told one of the girls to hold my hands and one of the girls to hold my legs, and she pulled on my pants. And she got a stick and a strap, and she beat me, and the screams on me, and I fell off the bed while she was doing it now. She was still beating me when I was on that ground, all because I was not allowed to speak to the outside world. And there was a borders there, and when I went to Mass in the morning, you had to not look at the borders. If you looked at them, you would have been beaten. You know how far Ballinascarthy is from Clonakilty?
Yeah.
Every Sunday, they used to make us walk, to make us get ready for work, all 4 or 5 miles, to keep us fit. And I don't forget, we're only 6, 7 and 8 year old children.
I know.
It was just pure cruelty. Food, we got no food, Harry. Food was not, we used to sneak into the pantry to get food. And this first thing in the morning, every month they used to give us Epsom salts to clean us out. There was a farm there as well. I loved going up to the farm because I knew I wouldn't get any beating that day. I loved being with the animals, and I was so hungry, there's no word of a lie now. I used to actually eat chicken feed. You know, the chicken's food?
Yeah.
And there was iron bats, and when you started developing, they put these things over your bodice so you wouldn't look at yourself developing.
Oh my God.
You know, bodice. You weren't allowed to look at your body.
And would they ever say anything to you as to why they were being so cruel, these nuns?
That's what they did. Yeah, we were slaves. I know, but in other words, for example, we were making money for the church. What we were doing, people should have been coming in to do it.
Yeah.
Grown-ups should have been doing it.
Slaves.
And that's why they were taking us up. Little children, that's why they were called industrial schools, because they were taking us in to work. And you never got a hug. And if you cried, you got more beaten. I used to run from people until only recently I can take a hug. When somebody hugged me, I screamed. I scream. Because I thought it was unnatural for someone to hug me.
And how long did you stay in Clonakilty?
Well, one day out of the blue, they were told that it was closing down. And we were all delighted because the place was closing down. But the sad thing about we were going to leave each other and never see each other again. So with that, the car came up from town and we were all crying because we were leaving it. So anyway, I went to Mallow, and Mallow was completely different, and we were allowed out. And I remember going to a carnival one day, and that's where I met. I was on a chair plane and he swung around me around. But I didn't know he was behind me. And I got off, and I won't tell what happened after, it's too long of a story. But as I was walking by, he never asked me once, what part of Mallow did I come from? No, that's the first thing somebody would say. And I never thought about asking him. So I was walking by the industrial school. He said, that's where you are, isn't it? I said, how do you know? He said, by your sad eyes.
Oh.
He said, I can see it in your face. Even I laughed with him. And none of the two of us knew the facts of life, and he brought me down the fields. I won't go into details, nothing really happened.
Yeah, I know.
And then what happened, I used to sneak around the corner. As the first time, oh, by the way, he gave me an ice cream that day.
Yeah.
And you know what I says to him, why am I getting this? Why are you giving it to me?
Yeah.
Is this supposed to be my birthday?
Kindness. You didn't know what kindness was.
I didn't. And I asked him, why was he giving it to me? I says, why was it my birthday? Why was he buying this for me? And I was crying. What happened is that somebody gave me something. And I really loved him. I just fell in love with him. I don't know. And I was so happy. And I used to sneak out, and the mother used to say, that girl from the orphanage is out there again. And we'd go off in the van together. But anyway, I was there for a year and a half. And I thought it was okay. But I started getting sleepwalking, trying to escape, sleepwalking. I was wake up on my face, just be smashed from sleepwalking, because I was trying to escape and dreaming and escaping. Went on for years. But anyway, I was told that it was this woman looking for me in the parlour. And this woman, and she says to me, I'm looking for someone to come to work for me, and I'm looking for you. And I've got frozen. And she said, you don't come to me with that short skirt on you. And I says, what's this woman doing this to me for? So she came down again. And I couldn't understand it.
And you eventually went to this big house on the south side, didn't you?
I felt the only way was to get away from all this hardship, maybe, is to get away from here. And I got out and went away from there, then things could change. But little did I know there was what's to come.
Because when you got to the house, did she say to you, you're my slave now?
When I got into the car, she said, now you're my slave. And I had my hair up in ponytail or something by the way I was dressed. She said, you don't come dressed to me like that. And as soon as I entered, and I went out with her, and when I went in, she put a long white coat on me, and she had an 8-bedroom house. 8 bedrooms, and I used to have to hoover them every day, and I wasn't allowed to use the bath, I wasn't allowed to use the toilet upstairs. And I used to have to wash myself in the yard, and as soon as I went there, she got me down on my hands and knees and started scrubbing the floors in the kitchen in a white long dress. And I used to work from 8 in the morning, 11 at night. When I was feeding them, she had one daughter and a husband and herself. All in the house.
Did you have to cook for them as well?
I cook everything, and I never in my life did anything. First thing in the morning, she'd bang down the door, whatever time it was, before the husband went to work, and I had to polish his shoes and do his breakfast, all alone in this big house, all on my own. No one to talk to.
She said, you're nothing, you're a nobody.
She kept saying that as well.
Yeah.
I went up to the industrial school looking for me, and they gave him my address. And the next thing, letters started coming. And of course, I was all delighted to get the letters. He came to visit me. It was a Sunday, and we went off together. And she didn't know, because I sneaked. I wasn't allowed out of the house, by the way. I sneaked out. And when I came back, she realised I was after sneaking out, because I had to get permission from her to leave the house.
Yeah.
I couldn't leave the house without her permission, in other words. But they came up, and seemingly he wrote a letter afterwards saying that he was delighted to see me. And with that, I ended up back up in Sundaswell.
You've gone from Clonakilty to Mallow, from Mallow to this house on the south side, from there to the Good Shepherds. And what was that like? Were you working? Were you doing the laundry?
Oh, nine. Oh, don't. I'm surprised I don't break down at this stage. Oh, no, I haven't moved on from there. I haven't moved on. When that door banged on my face, I said, that's the end of my life. They were all like zombies going around. My hair was chopped up. I was told my name was going to be changed. And there was one thing I was screaming for, was the photograph. That meant so much to me.
Your boyfriend's photograph.
Yeah, and I used to keep looking at that, because when I was in the big house, I loved him so much. Because the last thing he said to me, we're going to spend our rest of our lives together. And I didn't know what that meant.
I know.
And I actually said to him, will I sleep in the van with you? I didn't care once I was with him, because I loved him.
I know.
Anyway, and I met up with him again in 2002 in Mallow. And he was actually delivering to the Magdalene laundries.
Oh my God.
Anyway, because he was walking into the laundry in Mallow, and that's how he had a van. When I went into the Magdalene laundries, oh no, it was terrible. I'll never forget it. That door banged, and you were never coming out there again. And you were told your name is changed. You were giving me Benedicta, Anastasia, and I'm bawling. I must spend all my life crying. I don't know what the meaning of happiness.
You said you could fill the Lee with your tears.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in Dublin.
Yeah. And the Liffey. Yeah.
And the Liffey, whatever. And the Lee, yeah. So anyway, seemingly, I was crying so much. I spent all my life crying, I think. That's all I know. When that door banged, and I was told, this one, she says, your name is going to be Margaret. I said, I'm not going to be Margaret. After her. No, they were deciding what name to give me. And this one come out of the blue. And she said they eventually gave me my age. So all my clothes were taken off me. And I got this gown, whatever they call these overalls. And my hair was chopped. And I was told I wasn't to talk. And I couldn't understand what was happening. But the case was gone. That photograph was in. And for 3 weeks, I wouldn't eat for them. I would sleep for them. I just wanted to die. All I wouldn't eat for them. I wouldn't go to bed, wouldn't sleep. And I said, you might as well kill me. There's no point going on living. What's the point? There's too much suffering. So after about 2 or 3 weeks, they were force feeding me to eat. And I was just working the laundry from morning to night. Get up at 6 and then went to bed at 6, and that was it. And I guess there was about 200 women there. And I remember when I was in there, and this is no word of a lie, I saw in a box, a cardboard box, because we're all whispering that somebody had to die. And next thing, a box came, and there was a woman in the box in the corridor, and she was dead, and she was dragged out, and no one knew where she went.
Was she an elderly woman?
I'd say so, yeah. Well, I don't know about ages anymore. I never talk about age because I don't know. I never had a birthday till I was 21.
No, I'm just wondering, would it have been an elderly woman who literally had been in there all her life?
Yeah. I guess so, I would, yeah.
Because there were many women who were literally in there all their life.
There was 200 women in there when I was there. 200 women in there. You went and and the way they went to bed at night. They had the beds. Your bed wouldn't be facing mine, and vice versa. To be turned to back
for silence.
And none would be snooping around to make sure no one was talking. And if you talked, you were threatened with someone else, maybe a mental home or something.
Were you beaten? Were you beaten there?
And yeah, something with a one of these sticks. Like it's not strapped now with a stick. If you stop walking, if you stop with your walk, they might give you a clout across the face, something like that.
So here you are.
Box across you.
So you would have been at this stage perhaps 16 or so. Was it 16 perhaps?
I was 16 because I had no birth to see. I had no birth to see.
For 16 years of your life, you were a slave to other people and you were beaten and abused. And even there, because the laundry and all of the washing and everything, like that was coming in from hotels, wasn't it? And coming in from restaurants.
Exactly, yeah. So all I knew was work. And all I know is, since I was born, all I know, Niall, is work. I don't know anything else. I don't really know what a human being should really be. I don't know what a family is because I never had a family. I never had a mother. I don't know what a mother's like.
And do you believe that some of the women were victims of sexual assault?
Absolutely. And I know what I always say. Why weren't the fathers locked up? Why weren't the fathers locked up? And I don't know who gave the right to lock. Who gave them, church and state, the right to take my mother away? Who gave them the right to lock people away and take their homes and families? And if they believe in God, which they don't, obviously, they wouldn't do it.
I know.
Because I'm suffering, still suffering.
Did you used to sit down under a particular tree waiting for God?
That's correct, yeah. Because I thought he was going to come down and take me away. Because I was brainwashed with him.
And without
the stations of the cross every day, the stations of the cross, the rosary twice a day, benediction and mass every day. So I have two big holes in my knees from scrubbing and kneeling for prayers.
I know.
With benediction every day.
I know.
And the rosary twice a day.
And Mary, you were driven away one afternoon by an individual who raped you.
After being in the Magdalene laundries, I guess, for about a year. He came, I was told I was wanted in the office.
Yeah. And
I did not for. I thought I was going to be put into somewhere else, another lock-up. And the first thing he said to me, I wouldn't make up a lie, on my mother's soul, he said to me, "You're getting more like your mother every day, big chested." That was his first sentence he said to me. And I'm looking at him, and I was afraid to answer him. I didn't know, because I'm all new to all this. So he says, "You'll come back to work for them people. On one condition, you keep away from fellas." So he said, the man in the house is the one that wants you back. Something like that. Because he used to always see me crying, and he felt sorry for me. So anyway, I went back working there, and I was about 2 or 3 months there, and the same regime. I was to scrub the floors, and I don't know what she had me doing. Waxing the floors where the rain came down outside the door. Wax the floor outside there. And then she had a living room, a sitting room, a parlour, a dining room.
Where did you sleep?
A blue room. I slept in the kitchen beside where all the hoovers and the hoovers were. In the kitchen, in a small room. And I wasn't allowed to use the bath or nothing. And I had to wash myself in the yard. And one day she was out, and I sneaked up the stairs to the bath. And she came in and she grabbed me out of the bath. She said, "You are only dirt. You shouldn't be using the bath. You're told that." Even her daughter used to give out to her, "You're treating that girl terrible."
How could people be so cruel? I mean, how could any woman be so cruel to a young girl?
But that's what I had as a child as well. I don't know. That's all I know in life is cruelty. But anyway, what happened was I was talking to the bread man. Well, he was delivering. I just get all our stuff delivered. Everything was delivered. Everything. And the bread man got the bread. And I heard her saying to the man, saying about the bread man. So with that, he came again in the little room I was sleeping in. Put yourself in my shoes now and imagine this. And you're going back to the Good Shepherds, whatever.
Because you were talking to the bread man?
Yes.
Okay. But he didn't bring you back directly to the Good Shepherds, did he?
So what happened was, here he comes again. So I'm in tears. I said, oh, gee. I said, I actually asked me to kill me. So I remember had my hand, and he put me in the car, and then my hands in my hands, my head in my hands, bawling my heart. I was crying my heart out. All I did was cry. I don't think I ever remember smiling. And with that, I think the only time I was happy when I was with, that's the only time I felt happiness, because that was taken from me as well. So anyway, as I was driving out, I had my hands in me, my hands crying. And he was driving away, and with that, the car stopped. But when I put up my head, I knew it wasn't the red building. I was expecting to see the red big building. And with that, I opened up the car and I started running. It's the only thing I could think of, run. And then he get me, and I remember exactly what I was wearing. Because I was wearing blue tights and small, as a little navy skirt, and he tore the tights off me, knocked me to the ground, and he raped me. And then he grabbed me off the grass, and he says, get into that car, he says. One thing, he says, I'll give you a chance. And I'm in tears, and I says, please let me go. He says, I'm only letting you go on one condition, and your mother never got a chance. I says, how do you know about my mother? How do you know? He said, she's dead. I says, how do you know? And why did you put her? Where did you put her? Where did you put my mother? And then he said to me, there's a place over there by the Mardyke. If there's no room in this hostel, it's either the mental hospital for you or the back to Sons as well. I said, well, I'm doing nothing wrong. No, he said, well, there's nowhere to put you.
Yeah.
You actually think you were talking about some kind of an object. There's nowhere to put. You think we're talking about a cup or a sauce? There's nowhere to put you.
Where did you go? You ended up on the streets eventually, didn't you?
I did, yeah. But what happened was, there was room in the house. And I remember it was September. And the woman said to me, there was nobody there because they were closed down for the after the summer. And she says, we'd have been closed in 2 weeks' time. And there was a woman there. And she was a lovely, lovely woman. Probably that's why I thought she was a mother. She had grey hair. She put me in front of the fire and I was totally shaken. I couldn't give me tea. And she was asking me how I got a family. I couldn't talk to the woman. I couldn't even sit down or nothing. And there was 2 people in the hostel and they were cleaning the place. And I just stayed there. She said, you know how you'll have to leave here after 2 weeks. There's nowhere else to put you. And after that, then I went to sleep in Fitzgerald's Park.
About what year was this? Was this in the late 60s, mid 60s?
I'd say 69.
Okay.
69, 70.
Okay.
Well, 69, 70, yeah.
And I just wanted to go back to, Peacock Lane and the Magdalene laundries and the Good Shepherds. You were saying that there were other girls like you who also were sexually abused and raped. How do you know that?
Oh, because one girl shouted when she was coming in, that's B. She said, rape me. But we weren't to talk, but she said it. I heard people say she's screaming her head off when she was inside. When she was inside, that bastard raped me. She kept counting his name. But the nuns didn't care, they just put it there.
When the nuns would hear a girl shouting that this man had raped them, would they do anything?
No, he worked for the state and they worked the church. This church and state colluded together. Well, when I left there, anyway, I won't go into what happened when I left there. And this woman was working in Clonakilty. She took me out of Cork and brought me up here to Dublin. And I never saw her anymore. She was gone. That was the end of it. But to make a long story short, the reason why I'm telling you this is because something happened up here, how I discovered I had a brother. I went to work in a few factories, and I was working in the Smith's Crisp factory. And this girl, she's in Fermoy. She lives in Fermoy. So one day she said to me when I was in the factory, she said, where are you from? I was on not Long Nile. I had to get my birth cert. So with that, I said, I originally come from Newmarket. And she looked at me, she said, Newmarket? I said, yeah. Well, so the girl next door to me is from Newmarket. So she used to go home every weekend to her husband's. And she said, and she'd come back to Dublin again. And she says to me, do you know you have a brother? I said, how on earth could I have a brother? When I found my birth cert, I wrote to the priest, if you like to call him that, in Newmarket, and I asked for my mother. Could I find, please, I want to find my mother, please. And I was living in a job here in Dublin. And he says, he wrote back and he said to me, your mother is dead, get on with your life and don't you ever write back here again.
Oh my God.
That's the answer I got. And
was it at that point then that you started to piece together what happened to your mother?
Yes.
What
happened was, she went to school with my mother, loved my mother. And she said, I adored your mother. And she said, the last time I saw your mother, myself and your grandmother, you'd have loved your grandmother. We went up to Peacock Lane. This is what she said to me. And she said, your mother had a sack on her and the nuns were trying to kick you out of her. And she said, the nuns said, myself and your grandmother were never to come back again to Peacock Lane, that my mother was a singer. And she went, if they come back again, they'd put her somewhere else. And that's the last time they saw my mother, in Peacock Lane.
But she did give birth to you.
She said, I don't know what happened to your mother, but I do know you have a brother called Christopher Smith. That's all I know. So I wrote then to the priest in Newmarket, looking to see how they got a brother, and he said, your younger brother is dead. Again, get on with your life. So that was the end of that. I was never going to find a brother.
Part 2 of my conversation with Mary Smith after 11. Mary Smith after 11. Mary Smith after 11. Mary Smith after 11.